All right, LeighAnn, welcome to the office. Thank you for coming in. So I'm really excited to have you here and tell everybody what it is you can do. And I guess the reason I fell in love with LeighAnn and what she can do, first of all, was because she showed us this map on the Zoom calls. Like, she was just taking the 60-day challenge, just like everyone else was, and she was like, look at this map I made. And the one you showed us was like huge. It was massive. So she's got a little bit of a smaller version of it for us today. So tell us about it. Tell us about what you do and how it all works.
Well, professionally, I work with design, so I do illustrations that are both hand-drawn, and then I also do design work and layouts. So that's going to be my focus, working with Haley. And basically, when I started out my original novel, it came out as a map first. It had no written content, and I decided to basically take a big thing of coffee and just spray it on a page. And that became a layout. And so once I started doing that, I started taking pen and ink and basically dipping a quill and starting to etch out continents and cities and all kinds of places. And so over the years, it basically developed into one big continent. And then I kind of based a novel around it because I thought, well, shoot, I've got all the lands here. Now I could kind of generate where people are, what the cities look like. So basically, I have a little printout here. It's just a small version. The big version's like a big watercolor sheet of paper, but...
Wait, this isn't the same coffee stain, is it?
This is.
So, really?
Yeah, so originally... It's going to be a little hard to see here, probably. Yeah, so basically, it became a combination piece of just different types of, watercolors and colored pencils and a lot of inside jokes. So I had a friend of mine who I was having some challenges with, and her little city was called Silvern. And it was this beautiful city along the coast, kind of had some rivers that were going past it, and then we had a little falling out, so I kind of flooded her city. But it still makes a great story because I can base now an entire world about this place. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like cities in Venice or Amsterdam, so it has a lot of canals. They've adapted to their flooding.
I feel like that is like such an important part of your story now, is that flooded city. I think everybody on our Zoom calls is looking forward to reading your book purely because they know about your falling out with your friend and then you flooded her city. So, this, whenever you guys are watching this, maybe this book is out already or maybe not, I don't know. But LeighAnn is going to be doing the map for the Whisperess for me. I'm really excited because I'm just so in love with the way that hers have turned out. They're incredible. So, one of the big things is that I am only recommending people to you guys who I am working with as well. And so LeighAnn is going to be working on the map for the Whisperess. I'm really excited. And tell us a little bit more about what else you can do in the interior of a book. Like, what options are there?
There's a lot of fun stuff. If you've read a lot of young adult books, even the illustrations in, say, Game of Thrones, there are a lot of little things you can add to, say, chapter headers that are really neat little features that just give your book a little bit more involvement with the reader. And I started doing originally kind of researching book plates, like old actual scenes from, basically Europe and other countries. And I fell in love with the way that a lot of the illustrations looked very sketchy, kind of like they basically just did a copper plate, put some paper on it, and printed it. So that's kind of my style. I enjoy basically doing a lot of pen and ink illustrations. And those could be basically from anything that's distinct about a chapter, or it could be something about the previous chapter, anything that alludes to that scene that you think would be kind of fun to have. So basically what I can do is I can take your ideas and illustrate them, and there are no hurt feelings. If it doesn't come out quite right, you just let me know, and we just make it whatever works. Because books evolve and they change all the time. Mm-hmm. So you can't expect something to be necessarily right on each time, but it's a work in progress. And then from the other side of it too, I can also do layouts. So typically there are some really basic, great templates out there. I've narrowed it down to 3 of my favorites that just work really, really good together. So with a collection of fonts, I usually limit it to about 3 to 4. The more fonts, it gets a little messy. But ideally, once you kind of have your manuscript, I can float into everything, get your chapters to all fall on the right page so you don't have things jumping around. And we can pick fun fonts and add illustrations to everything. Mm-hmm. So really what you end up with is a file that's not only print ready, but it's Kindle ready or, ebook ready. So it makes it so it's very, very versatile and you can take it anywhere. So it's yours, essentially. So it gives you that real vision of what your book looks like, not just on a computer screen, but as an actual manuscript.
And one thing that I think people don't realize, I mean, if you're just starting out, how would you possibly know this, right? Is that depending on what printer you go with and who is creating your book, you need to format your files differently. So, depending on who you're sending it to, they're going to have like some different preferences on where your words are spaced on the page and like how big your margins are. And I was just telling her there's certain companies that are extremely particular about the font that you have on your spine and exactly what size it can be, and they'll just keep rejecting it until you get it exactly what they want.
Yep.
And so one of the things that we're about to do is I am sending you the files for Prince Avalask and for Macho, because we're going to be changing those. You know, I have the finished files that made the hardcover books that you see behind us, but we're going to be turning those into paperbacks, which I'm really excited about because that's kind of a new avenue of revenue. It's a new avenue of reaching more people. So what does the process look like if, let's say I don't have anything formatted? Let's say I was at square one, I didn't have the hardcover formatting done. What do I need to send you? How does this work?
Well, ideally, sometimes you have a digital file of some kind. I'm assuming it's not a handwritten thing that you're sending. So ideally, you
or maybe it is. Can you do that?
Sure, I'm actually a really fast typist. I can do that really fast.
She's got so many skills.
But you never know. So I basically take whatever people can give me, and I'll figure. Basically though, you're taking a book from a hard copy to a softbook copy. You're going to work with imposition. So that's one thing that printers kind of deal with, and a lot of designers don't necessarily know that. But if you can give a printer a really ready-to-go file, that is going to make them so happy. Don't piss off your printers.
They'll just reject your book over and over, and it never gets. You're delayed by months.
Yeah, or they'll charge you more, and that's the problem too. You don't want to lose your revenue on something where a printer says, "Well, we'll use our services to get it print ready." No, see, that's the part that you can't eliminate, and a lot of designers miss that, and that's unfortunate. So in college, that's one of my specializations. I went through and decided print production made sense. So taking a skill from hand-drawn illustrations to a digital working medium, including type and print. I mean, that basically makes you a combination kind of artist, and that's a niche that's needed. It really is. So in this case, if I'm receiving text files, I've laid them out in a software program. I use InDesign because I really like the way the layout works. But ideally, once I get those files, I basically navigate through them and format them to whatever size is, whatever the specs are, and I even do a test output. And if that seems like I can, check all my little, what are those things? Little tick mark boxes, whatever it is that needs to be required for a print, I would make sure that that's basically what you get. You get a final file that already hits all those marks. So you don't have to worry about it. It's basically ready to upload to whatever.
So basically, you just, as an author, we have to figure out who we're printing with, right? And then figure out what, because since each printer has kind of some different specs, either like just let you know, like if it's one of the more common ones, I'm sure that we can just say, hey, it's this one. I'm doing Ingram or I'm doing KDP or something like that. But with some of the more obscure printers, we just have to get the specs from them, send them to LeighAnn, and then she can actually just lay that book out and have it ready to go. Exactly. Which is so nice.
Exactly. The translation services, really, because a lot of that verbiage is going to be kind of confusing, and that you don't have to worry about that. I've been there, I understand it, and if I have to contact them, I will.
So when would somebody need to come to you for formatting? Like, are there things that they can do on their own? Is there times when it's going to be too much and you recommend that they get somebody to help them out?
The best time is when your book has gone through its most final editing and you feel confident that you're ready to at least see a hard copy, a proof of some kind of, a final ready to go copy. I say basically once you're done editing, because as your book is changing and everything's evolving, your page count's going to change. Your printer's going to have to revise their quotations to you because your number of pages or sheets are going to change. So ideally, when you're ready to go, you'll know that you have a manuscript that's been edited. You've got your final word counts and everything that are in there, and you want to see what it looks like in print. So that's going to be your motivation and your excitement as well. And at that stage too, consider illustrations, because again, it's really awesome to have even just a little graphic of a shield or something that represents some aspect of your book. It gives a reader a feel of like a memory item or something that they can associate with each chapter. I mean, there's several, we all have the symbols from Game of Thrones. Like those became very iconic and those became very popular. I mean, even something like that, even a logo design like that, it really adds to the quality and the content of a book. And, readers will enjoy it. I mean, it's just something that's just a neat little feature that a lot of people don't consider, but it's worth putting in there.
I'll tell you from my own personal experience. In the beginning of every single chapter of my book, there's a tiny little sword through the first letter in the beginning of every chapter. And the amount of time that it takes me to do that, because this is not my profession, I'm self-taught when it comes to like formatting, and there is quite a bit that you can figure out yourself, but there's a lot of reasons when you would want someone to do it for you, which is, it is extremely time consuming. If like I don't know the program InDesign, which I know is a lifesaver, and I know I need to learn it, but I don't know it. So I've been doing like backdoor ways to get that little sword through every single letter in the chapter headings, and I just have to dedicate literally a whole day. Like when it's time to send my book to print, I spend a whole day putting that little sword through every single silly letter. And just the amount of time that it has taken me to like learn each program that I've needed, like Adobe Illustrator. I had to do that for my map, which actually I had someone create the map, but I had so many changes that I wanted to make to it that I had to go learn Illustrator. And I like Photoshop for doing like typography. And there are so many things that you potentially can learn yourself, but if you have somebody who already knows them, I mean, LeighAnn could probably do what I'm doing in like a third of the time. And so it makes sense sometimes to not just go spend your life trying to slave away and learn it, but to give it to a professional who already knows how to do it and could just whip it out. It definitely can save you a lot of time. And when you think of time as being money, it really can save you a lot of money in the long run too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially coming from a print experience and a print background too. The easier that you can give your printer if you are confident that your file is all ready to go, you're just going to have a much nicer time. Just from personal experience, that's the part you want to have fun with. And especially with art, that's the part that makes me, happy to, work with people. That's what I love to do. I love to see start to finish products. I love to see people's books come to life. And that's one of the neatest things about, these illustrations and being able to do layout is that even in my own experience, I laid out kind of my first novel and kind of did my own glue bound thing with it too. And so I'm, of course, trying to fit a spine, measured it out with, there's formulas for all this, so you don't have to think through it. But coming from college, I've actually done bookbinding before. It's kind of a little hobby here and there. And doing it myself was definitely, it's fun. It's like motivating. It's like to see it actually real, it makes it reality. It's hard to explain, but it's a amazing thing to feel your book like in your hands as a finished product.
So is that something you think you'd be able to do for people, is just give them like one proof copy to look and hold it in their hands and make sure it looks good before they send it to print?
Absolutely. Through I have I can recommend print services for folks, but basically whenever you receive a file and what's ready to go, once you give it to that printer, whoever you do choose to print with, that would be the first thing I would invest and have them do for you, is always do a check of that. It may not be glued in there, but it'll be at least a hard copy bound to see everything. And most places, if they don't offer it as a included price, ask. It's worth asking for, because you don't want to get everything and have something not work, which in my case shouldn't happen because everything should be all prepped. But printers do make mistakes. People make mistakes. Printers make mistakes.
And on that note, it's kind of good to have somebody to consult who has done this before. I don't want to tell you guys how many things have gone wrong in my printing experience that probably definitely could have been fixed if I'd had somebody like LeighAnn advising me from the very beginning. I, of course, chose to learn everything the hard way. So it's really nice to have somebody in your corner, on your side, who knows how it works and just how to do everything.
Can champion for you.
Yes, yeah, and be like, wait, because so I'll just tell the story actually here. Well, one of the stories, because I know we were talking about this, is that my book 3 with the girl on the cover up there, you can see her just a little bit. When we very first printed them, she came out hot pink, like, and 1,400 copies of hot pink. She just looked like she baked in the sun for 14 hours, this poor girl. And I was telling LeighAnn that story, and she goes, oh, anything with magenta, you turn it way, way, way down. I'm like, Who would know that? Who would know?
Oh god.
You don't know that until you get 1,400 copies of a sunburned girl. So anyway, it's the little things like that. It really helps to have someone who can help you out. I wish I could say that was the only one, but it's not. It's just the one that that is kind of the funniest because you were like magenta.
Yeah, that's a real thing in the world. And actually, blues, the color blue, making sure your blues don't have enough magenta so they don't turn purple. That's another well-known print trick. So that's something that I already knew and have, as a printer, it's universal. It's a universal problem with every printer, and I don't know why it is. It's like some of the hardest colors to match are blues and turquoises.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, something about the spectrums with what they can achieve, but you only have 4 colors, CMYK. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's another thing. If your files aren't in CMYK and you don't know what that means, you might want to talk to LeighAnn. All right. So, is there anything you want to leave off with, LeighAnn? I mean, are you excited to make some alien languages for people and maps and chapter illustrations?
It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to learn and get to see what everyone's done, and it'll be really exciting to make your creations come to life and see you guys enjoy, your books and this new aspect of it. I'm excited to work with everyone.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody. That's LeighAnn for you. Give you a round of applause.
Thanks.
All right.